My wife showed me this photo that she saw on the interwebs and wanted me to update our powder room in the same fashion. So I strapped on my doing stuff boots and got to work, because that's what you do when your breadwinning wife asks for something. First step was cutting all the tongue and groove board for the accent wall. That's what I call it, at least. But I believe the Gaines is down there on Magnolia Farms call this shiplap, which makes it sound fancier and jacks up the resale price. You may have noticed that all the boards were cut at different lengths. Things are going well. I had the bright idea of painting all the boards before I installed them. This was kind of a mistake, which I'll explain later. My stud finder has seen better days, so I'm using the old flashlight and magnet trick. Find the drywall screws and mark them so you can line up the stud. Once you've labeled where all the screws are, you can locate the studs so you can nail in the shiplap. That's right, I'm calling it shiplap now because I'm fucking fancy. If your wife is like mine, then you most likely have a lot of useless shit under your vanity. When I originally was going to start this project, I tried turning the water valves off and they were just like, nah. They were dripping worse than a woman at a Tom Jones concert right after he unfurled his mane of chest hair. I mean, look at this man. Even I'm getting a little mushy. Cover up the poopy gases. That bead of caulk was doing absolutely nothing. I didn't empty out the trap completely, so you'll notice that there was stinky trap water leaking all over me as I carried out the vanity. Stinky. Anyway, I had to call a real plumber to come in and change out the valves. There are just some things that I'm not willing to tackle, and fucking up plumbing is a fear of mine. If your plumbing job leaks, or more specifically does the opposite of its intended use, then this can lead to much bigger problems. Water outside of pipes is bad. There's some free plumbing advice for you. Speaking of plumbing advice, I learned this bucket trick from watching plumbing videos. That sounds kinky, but it's not. Anyway, it's supposed to drain the remaining water stuck in the toilet, I think by using magic. But I kind of fucked this up and got water everywhere. Water outside of pipes is bad. Look at how goddamn strong I am. That's the bowl and the tank still together, folks. Also, did you notice the pathway lights? I installed those in another video. You should check it out. Oops, I dropped it. Time for some dirty work. Removing the old wax ring. Once I got up some of the poo wax, I started noticing that the flange was all bent out of shape. This may explain why this toilet never sat right or stayed in place when it was business time. At any rate, there was no way I could leave that flange in there in the shape it was in, so it had to come out. Except that proved to be easier said than done. I hired someone to install this toilet originally. That was a few years back when I was taking care of little babies and didn't have any time to tackle fun projects like this. I was that guy that would hire out jobs, but preface it by letting the contractor know that I could have handled it myself if I had more time. Contractors love hearing things like that. Anyway, I ended up having to use this dull metal blade to cut the bastard out. The friction caused the wax ring to melt into a beautiful waxy pooey puddle. Time to cut out a glory hole for the valve. I needed a 2-inch diameter hole, but the largest spade bit I own is 1.25 inches. When it comes to glory holes, it's not the size of the bit that matters. I'm going to be making a few more penis jokes throughout this video, so strap in. I'll need to improvise using my jigsaw. That looks like absolute shit, but it fits, so fuck you. I actually ended up having to do this twice, which you'll see in a bit, but the second time wasn't any better. Removing some baseboard and quarter round to make room for the new vanity. Apparently these finish nails were put in by the construction gods. Not even my amazing dad strength could pull these bastards out. I originally began installing the shiplap starting from the ceiling down, but my pre-painted boards weren't locking into each other very easily. Seems like the thin coat of paint added just enough extra material that the male and female ends wouldn't fit into each other. That's not usually a problem for me because I have all the sex all the time. Just ask my wife. I promise. I totally promise. Goddamn finished nails. Restarting the lap of ship boards from the floor this time. This went much smoother, and I learned my lesson waiting to paint till after they're installed. Originally, I bought a really fancy, expensive one-piece toilet to replace the old one. But to my dismay, the 10-inch rough-in in my bathroom was too shallow for the 12-inch fancy toilet. I tried everything I could to make it work, including cutting out boards I just installed and even the drywall, which left me with a hole and no fancy toilet. But I used this opportunity to leave a little note, a little treasure for the next person to work on this bathroom. That next person will likely be me, so take that, me. Why buy such an expensive toilet, you may ask? Well, I spend a lot of time on the toilet. It's my sanctuary. The only place I can briefly escape from my children. They're constantly nagging me for things like food and water. I put a double wax ring on this bitch because I'm very paranoid about toilet leaks, as demonstrated by my apprehension to test flush this thing for the first time. Here goes nothing. Holy shit, it worked. That's rad. I was hoping the fancy expensive toilet would prevent or at least minimize the amount of clogs that I have to deal with. Children are professional toilet cloggers. And who is responsible for unclogging the toilet, you may ask? Well, my wife is very unlikely to climb down from atop her throne to do so, and kids are too stupid to do it themselves. So, me. I unclogged the poo-poos and pee-pees. But enough about the toilet. I tested the fit of this backsplash under the shippy lappy half a dozen times before this, and it slid in fine. But now that I've added caulk and it's on video, the goddamn thing won't fit. I'll just punch the shit out of it to force it in. Some asshole decided to install the faucet before caulking in the vanity. That asshole was me. Because in all honesty, I forgot that I had to caulk around the edges. I'm already a really shitty caulker. I've just never been good at handling caulk. Even when I wet my fingers, the caulk still gets really messy. Are you picking up on my penis innuendos yet? You may be wondering where I gained my fear of plumbing. Or maybe you're not, but fuck you, I'm going to tell you anyway. Once upon a time, I was a landlord to several multi-unit properties. I tried to handle any mechanical issues myself in order to save a buck and not cut into the profits by hiring jobs out. That's some free real estate investing advice for you. I used to hate doing plumbing. I hated it even more in my own home. If I fucked up in my rental, my tenants would have to live in poo water. Not me. But I'm not a slumlord, so finding a good plumber was crucial. I was fine with electrical because if you fuck that up, it's just a little zip zap and a light switch doesn't work. HVAC was too complicated but low on the issue list. Landscaping was fun, but the creme de la creme of necessities for rental properties was pest control, so finding a good exterminator was crucial. However, I learned that if you have a heartbeat and an IQ higher than a bug, you too could be an exterminator. Here's that reference photo again, and here's the finished product. Boom. Done.